And we were literally 45 minutes away, just in like an apocalyptic feeling situation.
Right.
So everyone in the world can resonate with how they felt during COVID. Yeah, people don't realize Lahaina is a small town. It's just a small town. I don't go anywhere where I
Right.
don't know people. And so I literally sat down on the orange pallet in Costco. Like, I'll never forget it. I just was like overwhelmed. What a privilege to be uniquely positioned to, in one of the greatest hours of need.
Welcome to High Strangeness, where we ask questions and explore all that is strange and unexpected in our reality.
Welcome to High Strangeness. I'm Tony, and this is a place where we talk about all things strange and unexpected in our reality. Back in 2023, something tragic and unexpected happened, and today we're going to go back into that time a little and take a look at it. Now, why do we do this? Because unfortunately things happen and it can change the rest of our life. The hope is that we never forget and, if possible, help minimize the chances of repeat situations in all of our lives. The Lahaina fire in Hawaii was devastating. I'm sure that the community is still feeling and reeling from that event that happened. I'm sure it is still a very difficult and emotional thing to recall and talk about for most people there. So I am very thankful to have Sarah Beckman, who is the pastor of the Citizen Church, which is only a few minutes away from Lahaina, with us today. So with that, Sarah, thank you so much for being on the show with us today, and how are you doing?
Doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
And how is Maui today? Like, is it the weather nice and everything like that?
Yes, it rained this morning. Usually rains once a day, a little bit. A lot of rainbows around here, as people know. And the average temperature is like 75 to 80 degrees. So we're getting into
Oh,
the warmer season. May starts to be hot, the warmer
yeah,
weather and water. And yes, it's a beautiful day in Maui.
yes. I've been to Maui one time. It was during my, right after I got married, we went there. And it's beautiful. Loved it there. Oh, you could
Yes,
just, you could just stay there forever.
it's
And she
really,
wanted to.
yes, it's very lovely.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. With the things that have happened out there, is the population, clearly the structures and stuff that were damaged caused people to have to do some different things, right? But in that area, is population starting to come back, or is it still to the point where, it's kind of decimated out there?
Gosh, well, it's kind of, maybe it would help to give the context for the west side of
Sure.
Maui.
Yes.
The west side is basically one of the tourist areas, and you have like the Kanapali Hotel Strip. Then you move further north, and you get to like the Kapalua, which is where like the Century Golf Tournament of Champions is, and the Ritz Carlton. Um, our church is located between Kanapali and Kapalua, and then going south from Kanapali is where you start to get into like the Lahaina, what we call Lahaina. But all
Hmm.
of it is the same zip code. We're all considered Lahaina.
Cool.
So they just name little areas by the beach. So I
Gotcha.
live in Kahana because that's Kahana Beach, and there's Hanakwai, and there, all the little towns are beach names, but we're all Lahaina. So
Hmm.
it's a kind of a tricky question because the people that were living north where I live, where the church is, we're about 7 minutes from the where the burn zone ended. And so we were very cut off from the rest of the island because we couldn't get through Lahaina, and you can't go around the north side. It's very
Hmm.
treacherous. And so we literally could not get to the other side of the island after the fire because we were north of the burn zone. But the population, as a question, people don't realize how small the population of Lahaina actually is. Without tourists, it's in the 14,000 range.
Oh,
And
wow.
so it's very small, and that's all those areas combined. So the density of population was in Lahaina town because it's the more affordable, and it's like a little hotter. It's just more
Hmm.
built up. And so people lived there in multi-family kind of situations where you have one home maybe with an ohana out back, They're renting their ohana. They're renting maybe the downstairs if they live upstairs, or so there are a lot of people on one dwelling, if that makes
Wow.
sense. So the
Yeah.
population was, yes, decimated because all of those people had to find somewhere to live. And many of them were not homeowners, they were renters because that's the more affordable rent.
Mm.
Where I live, a little further north, is a lot of tourism and a lot of tourist properties with fewer single family homes, but they're on the higher end,
Yeah.
and or they're neighborhoods where it's very local and older. So all those people like would have stayed, but then you have a ton of Airbnbs, VRBO, high rise, low rise, all of it. And
Hmm.
in my area, so West Side, and all those kind of went dark immediately.
Wow.
And then some of them were being used. Hotels, people's private Airbnb or VRBOs were being used by different organizations to house people that were affected by the fire, survivors. And
Right.
so, but if you were to just pay rent in this area, it's going to be significantly higher than Lahaina town. And then also, it was just like, it just became kind of a whole tricky situation, became very
Yeah.
befuddled. I don't know the word for it, but because no one could really afford to just rent one of these places. So you have FEMA
Right.
helping, you have different nonprofits helping, and it's been it's just been very tricky because many people left and had to
Yeah.
live on the other side of the island. So there was a lot of opportunities if you wanted to move to Kihei, which is an hour drive from Kaanapali or
Hmm.
Kapalua if you work there, if your kids went to
Wow.
school there. And then Kahului, which is where our airport is about 45 minutes drive. So the two number one places they wanted to send people are Kahului and Kihei. And they were like, I live on the west side. My job is on the west side. My kids went to school on the west side. I don't want to live an hour away.
Right.
So there is right now a trickle of people that are recently, just like from my experience, which is through my church and our church congregation, or people that go to church here. There's just been a trickle of people that recently, in the last few months, have said, I've moved back to the west side.
Mm.
So I'm really encouraged, but like it's three that I can count, right? So um, it's a slow roll for people to get back here.
Yeah.
So I mean, I
Yeah.
answered that in a long way, but I know it'll set us up for
No.
other
You.
questions.
Yeah. You answered that perfectly. I'm glad because just with what you answered, there were things I was misunderstanding already about the setup in that area. So thank you for doing that. I do want to ask you one question though. You mentioned that you're not able to get around from the one side of the island, and I remember it's been 30 some years since I was there, but I do remember not being able to get around the whole island. Is it that the road will not go around, or
It
what's
does
the
go
actual?
around,
Okay.
but it's very treacherous. So it's single lane. So if you leave
Mm,
north and go from like it would be like the west side of the island because it's like a figure eight, right?
yeah.
So up on the north corner, when you're trying to go around, it's very treacherous. You can drive it. It's a local road. It's narrow in parts. It's one lane. And so if you were on it and met another car, one of you would have to back up. And it's a cliff.
Ugh,
So
yeah.
they did open it after a couple days after the fire, but it was one-way traffic. So they were letting people
Yeah.
in. And maybe, I was kind of just overwhelmed and just here at the church pretty much 24/7 at the very beginning after the fire. But there was a few days where they opened it to let people out and they were taking them by bus and they were like holding traffic on the other side, kind of like as
Yeah.
if you were doing construction. And they were taking tourists out by bus from one of the private schools. So the beginning, they were using it to evacuate people that didn't need to stay here to live and work. And
Right.
then it became a one way. You could leave to go to Lahaina via south route, which is the way we always go. And then you would have to come back the north route. And you would have to show that you live in Lahaina in order to get back. You couldn't come back the same way you came. And
Mm,
that was like
interesting.
anywhere. Just they were trying to just protect the town because you have to drive through it to get here.
Right.
And there's all this
Right.
population over here stuck with no resources. And then they were also still putting out fires, still cleaning up, still searching for bodies. I mean, you can't be having people just chaos.
Yes.
You have all
Yes.
these relief workers, rescue workers all in there. So it was just like a very delicate balance at the beginning.
Crazy.
Yeah, very cut off.
Crazy.
We were very cut off.
Yeah,
For
that's got
two
to
weeks,
feel.
we didn't have any internet. We could get cell service at certain tiny little spots, and just trying to make calls. And there's one area that's like a block from where the church is, and my house is
Mhm.
just across the street. So our area, Kahana, and the airport is a block away, and people could get service just driving up that airport road. And so it became a makeshift central checkpoint,
Wow.
where people were just connecting and talking and meeting people, and just there was cars parked all along into the roads, and bikes and walkers, and everyone was going to the highest point they could get to try and call and reach out to loved ones. And that was like the one place. And it was weird because you could call,
That's
but you couldn't get texts. So if you went there, then you'd get like 40 texts. Are you okay? Are you okay?
yeah.
I've heard about it. It looks terrible on the news. We didn't have any
Wow.
news. We weren't watching the TV. We had nothing. But yeah,
Oh,
45 minutes away in Kaului, they're watching all of this. They're watching it go on, and
wow.
they're going to get a salad at Fork and Salad, and going to Costco, and going to Target, and going to like normal life. And we were literally 45 minutes away, just in like an apocalyptic feeling situation. It's
Right.
very bizarre.
Right. Crazy, but something that people need to think of. Look at that. Just a short distance and it's a different world
Totally different
for
world.
for that situation.
And
Wow.
it was very hard
Crazy.
on the people because they were like, my friends are acting like nothing's wrong,
Right.
and their life is normal, and they're calling people and sleeping in a bed, and it was just like, whoa, so crazy. Hmm.
Wow. So one more kind of current state question before we get into some things. So is tourism going to be able to bump up here is anytime soon? Is it this year? Maybe is it going to be a couple years still or?
Yeah, it's been happening. It's coming
Yeah.
back. I think that my word is, if you came for Lahaina town and you can't live without Front Street and the restaurants that you loved and went to there, then that's a problem for you. But
Yeah.
every other inch of Maui is wide open, and we need the tourism. And people
Yes.
they lost a lot of wages, they lost a lot of work. So everyone in the world can resonate with how they felt during COVID.
Right.
And so then all of a sudden we're barely recovered from COVID. And then we have another economic crisis, massive proportions on the island. So it really affected our people, because some were getting relief if you lost your property or your business. But if you're a worker that still works in all those hotels that still exist north of Lahaina town, you lost wages and tips and people and presence. And so then you are in your savings, but you're not getting any aid because you didn't
Wow.
lose something. So
Yes.
it's a
Right.
whole underserved population. And after about a year, we really started to see it at around Christmas year, 15, 16 months in. It was like people were just like really hurting. And we were like, oh, all the people that
Mm.
weren't getting all these checks, or their work giving a grant, or this relief fund here or there. And so that it was a very, like what you would call an unintended consequence. You didn't
Yeah.
realize was happening. But
Wow.
tourism, we have busy times. Summer's busy, Easter, spring break, February to April's busy, Christmas, New Year's is busy. So I feel like this we just passed through that spring break season. It was higher
Yeah.
than the year before, because now we're at 18 months or 20 months right now. But at 9 months, it was there, but it was
Yeah.
the faithful. I have a timeshare. I'm coming back. This is my place. I'm not missing it. But your one offs are harder because they're not
Yeah.
getting the right messaging about
Right.
that. We're like wide open, and we're beyond where we want people to honor. We want them to honor the land. We want them to honor the loss. We want them to have respect with the workers that are serving them, but not like as a sideshow or like, oh, did you lose your house? Oh my gosh, tell me about it.
Yes.
Because they're just so tired of that, like standing there
Yeah.
giving you your beverage or your plate of food, and then did you lose? Did you have loss? Did
Mm.
you lose a loved one? Did you lose a house? And I love the heart behind it,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it's fatiguing for a
Yes.
local worker. And
I bet.
and some people
They just
handle
want
it.
to get back to normal.
Some people
Yeah.
handle it beautifully, and it's because like they want to leave a nicer tip. But like just be gracious to all of them. Just everyone in Maui is affected. It's kind of like it's like any other disaster where the whole community is affected. And I hate to compare
Right.
it, but like if there's like a shooting in a community, you lose all these people, and everyone knows someone. Everyone is affected. You're in collective grief. Just extrapolate that 103 people that or 102 that are named, others missing that aren't like listed yet because there was no identification. um
Right.
they are everyone knows someone who knows someone, or someone, and then everyone knows someone who lost their house or their business, every single person. And so it's this just collective grief in a very small area.
Yeah. Jeez.
Yeah, people don't realize Lahaina is a small town. It's just a small town. I don't go anywhere where I don't
Right.
know people. I've been here
Right.
almost 6 years. You just don't know anybody. That you just know everybody somewhere.
Yeah. My gosh. It's yeah, I still every time I watch something or look at something, it's still like it's hard to wrap your mind around it.
It is.
How devastating it must be, especially locally for people that are
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's just like the message of respect and
Right.
just coming with a posture of, I might not get the very best service that I, expect, but just knowing people are tired. People
Yeah.
are working really hard. Many of the people that work in the tourism on this side of the island, many of them drive from the other side every day. So if I have to make a journey to where all our box stores are in Kahului, which is where Costco and Target and the airport and the mall, and just that's like where you go if you're going to Walmart, Target, Costco. It's what we do regularly to get our
Yeah.
groceries that are affordable and the things we need. If you're making a journey there in the morning, it's a nonstop line of cars for 10 miles because they're all commuting from somewhere they can afford to live or somewhere that they were placed by FEMA to this side to work. So it's a huge,
Crazy.
and that's like an hour and a half each day. Now, people do that in LA all the time, but there's no other route. So there's
Yes.
one road. So you can use your Waze app if you live in LA and pick a different way if you want to get off the freeway. We would be in the ocean or on the mountain. Like there's
Right.
no other road. It's just one road.
Yeah, and I remember that when I was out there, how the travel was very limited,
One
and
road.
I felt restricted a little bit.
It is.
But
It
you
can feel
guys
that way.
live
And then if
there.
there's a
Yeah.
boulder or an accident or a wildfire, and not even a big kind, what we experienced, but like a small one, the road will close. So you can be stuck
Yes.
on one side or the other. So if you had plans or any of those things, then you're just stuck. A flight,
Yeah.
it's just the road's closed.
It's
Good luck.
crazy.
Yeah, it is. It's island living
So
for sure.
let me see if I'm hearing you then correctly. So the east side of the island is more just where people live.
We're
The west
populated,
side is the
correct.
tourist sections. Yeah.
Yeah, and Wailea, like Kihei also has a whole area. Wailea and Kihei have like a tourist area as well. But the Kaanapali Strip with the Hyatt, the Sheraton, the Westin, the Marriott, it's all on the west side. Is kind of where
Yeah.
all that is. There's other hotels and areas, but it's like more commonly known. And if you live on the
Yeah.
west side, you say west side, best side.
Well, okay. Before we get into the few questions I have here, I want to ask you one last thing here about this, which is how are those closest to you in your congregation and stuff like that? Like,
Yeah.
how are things with your team, your flock, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's a great question. So our best estimate at the time of the fire was that 40% of our church lost either a home or a business. Um,
Wow.
and then you can extrapolate the number a little higher if, they knew someone that they lost, that they loved, or we had some people that were, I don't know, ancillary is the wrong word, but people that had at one time attended our church for different things or for a
Hmm.
season. We lost three people that were from our church. And so we were very blessed in that our congregation was not like hosting a ton of funerals or something, but it was like a funeral anyway, because they all,
Yeah.
so I feel that when we hit the 1 year mark, I felt a kind of a relief almost, and I wasn't expecting it because I've grieved before, I've lost loved ones, and sometimes the year mark can be really significant. But specifically for Lahaina, the 1 year mark felt like, all right, we made it. And it was a collective, there was like a lightness that I hadn't felt in a year. But I feel there's definitely a lot of hope. But around
Yeah.
1 year is like when people were like, oh, I might actually be rebuilding. And so on that 1 year mark, one of the things that I was very intentional about doing was going to anyone's property or lot that had been cleared and just saying, like, let's go and stand there as it stands now, cleared and ready, and just like reclaim it and just be like,
Hmm.
we're putting God back in his place here on your
Yeah.
property. And we're going to like kind of seal the, like, start fresh. And
Right.
that was very healing for people and very comforting and just a very good, like, tangible way to say, like, we're moving forward and not like it's over. Still very, very, very hard. But I do feel as we're getting close to the 2 year mark, there's a lot is a hard word. There is hope. There is more
Yeah.
hope. There's more lightness. But it is still remains very hard for certain situations, certain individuals, because some people are still being unable to, it's not just like everyone's rebuilding.
Right.
There is
Right.
rebuilding, but it's not like yeah, it feels good. Feels like we're seeing
Yeah.
movement. It might be 15% at the moment or 20 at the most of houses that are being rebuilt on properties right now.
Wow. Wow. Well, almost 2 years. And I'm hoping when people hear this episode too, and people remember this, right? I hope they will, and that prayers and thoughts will be with you guys
Yeah.
out there again, because you're right. It's still 15, 20, 30%. That's still nowhere near where where you guys need it to be.
Yeah.
So it's crazy.
We had some
Uh,
healthy expectations from other people that had experienced wildfires, and I never expected it to be faster than 5 years because of
yeah.
just also we live on an island. So getting the
Right.
resources and the supplies and the work and the cost, it's going to
Yeah.
add time that you have a lot
Yes.
more access on the mainland to. We'll just ship that in from Pennsylvania.
Right.
No, it's got to come on a boat.
Yeah, exactly. And it costs more when you do
Yes,
that too. That's
exactly.
right. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, let me ask you this: the Citizen Church. Just
Mhm.
to spend a minute there. What denomination is the Citizen Church, and what's your congregation like, and what size is it and stuff?
Yeah, such a great question. So, Citizen Church is we're a campus of a church from the mainland that is called Citizen Church in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Oh,
And this
cool.
was a pre-existing church that basically entrusted their campus to Citizen Albuquerque, and then we became a campus. So we weren't like searching for a campus in Maui. Just the Lord aligned the steps, and that's how the campus came to be. So I moved here from Albuquerque to lead this campus, and I got here in March 2020, right before the
Wow.
pandemic. And so it's been a lovely 5 years. I said, I think you
Right.
picked the wrong person. Maybe I'm bringing disaster. Um, but yeah, so our church is founded in Assemblies of God denomination,
Okay. Hmm.
and some people would even almost consider it non-denominational in feel. So it's that's kind of the best way I can explain it. And we've actually we're just on a slow, steady trajectory of growth. We worship around like 300 to 400 people a weekend between families and kids is what we would
It's
see
wonderful.
in 3
Yeah.
services. So I'm told by people that live on other islands that that's like on the west side of Maui, but I've only been here 5.5 years, and they're like, that's like a
Mm.
mega church for the west side of Maui. I'm like, oh, well, here it is then. I guess it is. I don't
There you
know.
go.
But it's, yeah, so that's, and we have 3 services, and we actually have one of them in Spanish. There's a high Spanish
Wow.
population on the island, and there was a Spanish church affiliated with the church that we were given the campus by, like to combine with our church.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it's kind of cool. And it's a very multi-ethnic place, Hawaii. The best analogy is that it's like a mini cruise ship because they're just people from everywhere in the world here. You have people that are from like that are Asian, that are Tongan, that are Samoan, that are Hawaiian, that are Filipino, that are Spanish, from all different Spanish speaking, whether it's the
Hmm.
Puerto Ricos or the Venezuelas and all of it. So and then a lot of people that have moved from the West Coast, Washington, Oregon, California. I vacationed here. Now I have a place.
That's great.
It's really it's very cool. I like to think of it as like a picture of what heaven will look like. It's just, there's just
Right.
it's not just a like one people group in our
Right.
church
Right.
building because that's how Maui is. Maui is just blended and cool in that way.
Yeah. Well, there you go, everybody. Visit, right? I mean,
Yes,
you guys they're ready for some tourism,
we
and now
are.
you've got somewhere on Sunday to go and get
Yes.
a worship service in.
Amazing.
That's perfect.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Thank you.
So 2020, you got put right through the fire, right, with
Yes.
all of that. That's what I was going to ask is how long you'd been there, and what was the reason for you and your husband to come out. But so you were part of the church on the mainland, and
Correct.
you decided to come out.
Yes, we were
That's
sent
awesome.
to pastor. So my husband works in the secular world. He runs a company and he
Yeah,
supports me as a volunteer. And then this is my primary role to be the pastor of this campus.
that's awesome. Great. Well, I hope speedy growth and recovery, right, from
Yes.
all of
Yes.
your congregation and
Yes.
everything that
That
they
is
have. Yeah.
exactly it. Yes.
Okay, let's jump into some of this. Everybody, we're going to go and kind of see through Sarah's eyes a little bit of the moments surrounding the tragic event that happened. First, I want to ask you, could you have ever imagined something like this happening? My thought would always been, you know, tsunami maybe as a consideration in an island, right? But something like this, was there ever a thought that this could be a possibility when you moved out there?
Mm. It's so interesting because I was aware of fires on Maui. And I remember one time that like early before I moved here, we were a campus for like about 9 months before I came, and there was a wildfire up like not far from the church, and they were like kind of sent out a prayer request, like pray for the church, pray for the building because there was a fire. So fires are common, and that was like my first exposure to it. And
Yeah.
then, like you said, tsunami for sure. It's actually just such a humorous story, but I had been on the island for maybe 2 weeks, pastoring the church, COVID. We're open 2 Sundays, then we closed. And we were we were at Costco on the other side of the island with the big orange cart, the pallet
Yeah.
cart, right? And we were buying supplies for something coming up, and maybe it was the Sunday, and maybe it was before the second Sunday that we closed. It might even be, yeah, whatever. It was right in that time. I'd barely been on the
Right.
job. We were at Costco, and all of a sudden, our administrative office of that girl, she called me and she said, Pastor Sarah, people are calling the church and wondering if we're going to open. And so we must have been in COVID. And I
Hmm.
said,
Yeah.
um, what do you mean open? And she said, well, didn't you know there's a tsunami warning? And I was like, no, I'm in Costco. Like, I did not know
Oh man.
this is a thing.
Yeah.
Please educate me. I think that was, and I think we were stocking up on groceries because we were so afraid that everything was like, that's what we were doing. Like, we were getting personal things. Like, they're about to
Right.
shut down the island and the airports, and like, we need to stock up on groceries. And like, that was the vibe. And so that was what we were doing, was doing that. And so she was wondering, because of COVID, are we going to allow people to show up at the church if they need to because of COVID?
Right.
Like, will we let them? And I was like, well, you did this before? And she was like, yes. Whenever there's anything, people come to the church because there's a highway, which is the new highway. And then there's like, you go one more block towards the ocean. And then there's the lower road, which is the old highway. And if they evacuate people above the highway. So you have to go to
I see.
higher ground. So if you live below the highway, you get evacuated. And our church just is like right here. Very big
Right.
plain, big parking lot, all the things. And I was like, okay, tell me what this looks like. Okay, all right. And so I literally sat down on the orange pallet in Costco. Like, I'll never forget it. I was standing by the lemons and I just was like overwhelmed. I just sat down. I'm on the phone. I was like, I can't believe this is happening. What do you
Oh
mean a
man.
tsunami? And so I said, I mean, yes, they can come to the church. We'll figure it out. We're not going to turn them away. Maybe they hang in their cars and then they come in to use the bathrooms. And we just have masks and gloves and all the things. And let's just do it. And so then we went back and added to our cart all these groceries so that if we had an influx of people at the church, we could
Yeah.
feed them. And so it was just one of the craziest moments of ministry. So did I ever imagine like anything like this? No. But also, I knew there was things like this, and it was very apparent by 2023 because we'd had many, warnings and things, but no one really stressed about hurricanes. And
Right.
because it's very rare for Hawaii, Maui specific to get affected because we're kind of in that inner, it's either the edges like Hawaii or Big Island that kind of would hit first.
Yes.
And the way
Yeah.
the waters and they're warmer and just the things I don't fully understand about the weather, but like, it just was like, we're fine. We do not have to worry. And even, yeah, so I think that's the answer to your question. I'll let you ask your
Yeah.
next one. But the other thing I would say is that I had served with the disaster relief organization before moving here as a volunteer. Just one of the things that God has put in my life and my heart to love my neighbor and do what I can. And it's just, and we became affiliated with an organization called Mercy Chefs, and they deploy in disasters. And so I had actually deployed with them in 4 disasters before moving here to
Oh
Maui.
wow.
So I was in Rockport, Texas after Hurricane Harvey. I had deployed to Redding, California after the car fires. I had gone to North Carolina for flooding after a hurricane. So I had exposure to disaster, which was very
Yeah.
bizarre. And so my mind could understand what was happening, even though it couldn't, because I had witnessed devastation like this before, which is
Right.
so bizarre. Like, I
It's
just really
almost like
believe.
that was
Yeah,
it's like that was provided as an experience for you for
yes.
your ability to help
There's
here. Yeah.
zero doubt in my mind that God knew that, like, he knows. He doesn't make it happen,
Yeah.
but he knows.
Yeah, he can
And if
see
we're
it. He can
obedient,
see ahead.
and we do, then we're going to be in the place he wants us to be in when he needs us there. And I
Yeah.
definitely, there's just, it's not an arrogance. It's just a pure belief in the faith of God that he
Yeah.
knows what he needed. And I was so grateful that I was somewhat prepared.
Right. Yeah. Powerful. Well, let me ask you about this, and I don't want to get into this more than just initially to just the surface of it. What do you think were the primary factors that contributed? Was it a lightning strike, a man-caused? Just so people know, what do they think the start of the fire was?
Yeah. It's a great thing to understand, I believe, because people call it the wildfires, but they don't understand that we were experiencing here Hurricane Dora.
Hmm.
So Hurricane Dora was coming our way and it was going to miss us. And um, often when there are high winds in Maui, which is super common, you will get a downed power line or something that sparks and starts a fire. And I mean, I could count 15 fires that we've had in the last 6 months in different places on the island. 'Cause so windy, so dry, and people think it's all lush and green. There's sections that are lush and green. There's sections that are just
Right.
hot and dry. Lahaina is one of them. It's the name Lahaina means like the land of the relenting sun.
Hmm.
It's almost
Okay.
15 to 20 degrees hotter in Lahaina than where I live, which is literally a 10-minute drive. It's
Wow.
just so hot. And so the night before the fire, my husband and I were on a walk down on that Kaanapali strip. And so if your listeners know and they've been to Maui and they've stayed at any of those places, there's just a beautiful boardwalk, goes in front of all the hotels, beach on one side, hotels on the other. And that's one of our walking routes. And we were coming back and turning the corner to go to our car. And I was like, I literally remember saying, I cannot believe how windy it is, Craig. Like we were struggling to walk to our car
Wow.
on a Thursday night or Wednesday night, whatever night that was. I guess it was a Wednesday night. So that was weird. We remembered it later. And there was very, very high winds. And we knew that we were maybe going to get the back tail of Dora and get high winds from it. But we weren't, we just, it was kind of like no one was treating it like an issue, if that makes sense. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, so I can go further on what happened next if you want, or we can just,
Yeah.
I
I mean,
believe,
I think, yeah, just to set it up so
yeah,
people can get a feel as we're getting ready to talk about the
yeah,
actual experience.
yeah.
Yeah.
So it's super windy. The middle of the night, our power goes out. So that just, means the wind is getting stronger and power lines are going down. And so we woke up because our power was out because air conditioning went off. And, and then it wasn't back on. And sometimes it'll be an hour or two, maybe four. Power goes out here a lot. And so we just tried to go back to sleep. And then we got up and we went to work at the church. And we have a
Mhm.
generator here, small one. And we were all like, oh, okay, well, let's plug the generator in and make coffee. And so we just were using our hotspots on our phones and working and drinking coffee. And so it was the staff and my husband, who wasn't on staff, and another pastor's wife. So the five of us were kind of here working for the day because there was no power anywhere. So no one was going to work.
Right. Right.
And in the morning when we woke up, we had an alert or knew that there was a wildfire in Lahaina. And then it's kind of like it happens really fast. Sometimes you don't even know there's a fire, and then you get a message that it's put out. So it's just like you would have to literally be watching all the time to like know how
Yeah.
many little fires. And there's a couple social media channels like Maui 24/7, Maui Now News that you do kind of keep your eye on so that you know what's going on. Am I going to go to the other side? Is there any fires? Is there any? It's just you just learn.
Hmm.
So it said there was a wildfire in Lahaina and it's been extinguished, completely contained. And so that was like around 9:30 in the morning when we were like having fun. Power's out.
Yeah.
And it
Which
didn't
isn't a
feel like,
surprise, right?
yeah,
It happens.
yeah.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
was like, this is business as usual for us. So, yeah, so that was all the information we had until like the moment we had different information.
Yeah. And when they said that it was extinguished, you probably dismissed it. You weren't thinking about it anymore.
Yes, we dismissed it.
Crazy.
And we, being north, were basically preparing. We were joking, like, there's still no power. We aren't going to go to our houses. So what if we see if anyone's cooking, if we could get takeout and watch a movie here at the church
Hmm.
with the generator? So we were kind of like, oh, we can move this and put a couch here. And like, we were just kind of like, hey, we're going to have like a slumber party movie night until the power comes back. We don't want to go home and open our fridges.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we were kind of in that mode at like it was getting to be like 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and that was where our minds were. And so we were very oblivious because we were like about to go have a movie night and take takeout. So
Right.
someone found a restaurant open, someone was on their way there to get it. And then because we were still out of power, someone said, well, we should probably go get gas. So my husband went to go get gas, and I was still here at the church. And then it was like probably around 3:30. And then all of a sudden, Pastor Juan, who's our associate pastor at the time, we had a high level volunteer church member that worked at the high school. And so the high school's up on a hill, very high, overlooking all of Lahaina. And you can Google it. Any of your listeners can Google it. Just Google like one of the best football stadiums in America, Lahaina Luna High School.
Yeah.
Because it's way up on the hill. You see the whole town below you, and you can see the harbor, you can see the ocean. It's stunning. And he was working at the school at the time. And the initial fire was below the school in like a dry area. And so he was further mountainside. And he called Pastor Juan, and he was in a full panic. And he said, Lahaina Luna Road is engulfed in flames. Get the church ready. And so we were just like, okay. And the gas station was closed. They weren't doing any pumps. And then it was not long after that phone call, truly, that all of a sudden we couldn't reach each other. It was like, it happened so fast.
Wow.
And what people don't know is that the winds were between 120 and 140 miles an hour.
Holy cow. You can't even stand in that almost.
No, you cannot. And we have personal testimonies of people who were holding each other to keep from being lifted. So it's like when people say like things like conspiracies, it's almost like to the point of you feel so offended because it's like you're diminishing what we lived through, which was hurricane force winds and so fast. And it's like, and anyone that's being unkind or vilifying police or firemen, I will just like want to cry because you just don't even have time to do the right thing, no matter how prepared you are, when 140-mile-an-hour winds are accelerating fire. It is a natural disaster, and you cannot explain it. You cannot put your predictions on it. You can't make a natural disaster fit in your box. You just cannot. It's indiscriminate. That's the bottom line. It's indiscriminate.
Wow,
and
I'm
so
seeing that in my mind here.
That happened instantly. We got the call. We all lost phones. We all lost power. And then our guys came back to the church, and we were like, oh my gosh. And we still didn't know how bad, so we didn't see it. We're not there. We're not the person standing there watching it. And then within 15 minutes, the first person who was a church member, that's what they do. They come to church. They know to go. They know to come here. We're safe. We're further north. We're above and they got here. And when I looked at the first person's face, when they walked in the door, I was like, oh no, this is very real. I just can tell they're in full shock. They can't even hardly speak. And we're trying to we're scampering around trying to get the church ready.
Yeah.
And so I just looked at one of my staff and I said, I need you to walk over. I need you to address them, look them in the eye, pray with them, meet them in the moment, but then we all have to get back to work. So we're going to have to just keep addressing them, loving them, and letting them know we will work through this. But right now we have a job to do, but we can't ignore them. And then they were helping. They just went to help. Everyone that came just started helping immediately.
Wow. this is where I was going to go with some of my questions. I was curious of the moment of discovery. And now what you just described was the moment of high danger where you're like, this is scary.
Yes.
It became very scary. When you were discussing or talking about the moment that communications were lost, I just had this fear. I thought to myself, what the families in that town that were there at the moment, who somebody went to the store or somebody went, and now you can't even communicate with them.
And we had a lot of people that were cut off. So
Yeah.
that main road is the main, like, mountain to ocean road, Lahaina Luna. It's the big one. Then there's a bypass that goes kind of around the top. Above the bypass is where the church or the school was. And those homes up
Yeah.
there were okay. The fire basically jumped the wall of the bypass and then just like went down. It went all the way to the ocean, and then it went right and left. It went north and south. So people were trying to evacuate north or south and made a plan if they were leaving with their families. And one particular family, they said, we're meeting at so-and-so's house. And the dad of the whole family, like a grandpa, but it's like a father and then their family and their family. He went like he was going to go north to her home. And when they went in different cars, because you want to take what you can, they were directed south because the road got closed and they were sending people south. And so they were separated. And then he was driving along Front Street and his truck started on fire like 3 times. And while he was driving, people were putting it out, like for him on foot and nearby. So when he got to church, it was the second person and I know him very well. And so I was like, oh no, oh no, oh no. He's not okay. This is not okay. I've never seen this person like this in my entire life. Cool as a cucumber, wisdom, wise, just like one of the people I would go to be calm.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh gosh. And then he couldn't reach his family.
Oh.
So he went to the house and no one showed. And then he came to the church. So he had to assume that they went south, but he had no idea if they made it because it was just so fast, so fast, so fast.
So fast.
So fast. So then people are saying, oh, the firemen didn't know. They directed us the wrong way. It's like, oh my gosh. It was changing by the moment. And there was literally power lines down everywhere from 140 mile an hour winds.
Sure. Yeah.
People had to leave their cars because there was power lines down. So cars can't get through. So you're literally, and we're small. It's not like we have a LAFD. We're small. It's like Lahaina.
Oh man.
There's 3 fire stations with maybe 10 people in each. I don't know. Like it's not big. So it was just that was the hardest. And so we ended up becoming a shelter and people came for safety. No one could use their phones for a long time. Then someone showed up with I don't even know what it's called. One of those little boxes that like you can get service on, like hotspot.
Kind of a
hotspot,
yeah, okay.
I think.
Mm-hmm.
And she brought it. And so then we were like letting people one at a time use it to try and connect with family members and be sure people were okay. So some people found out that night, thank God, like we were able to get through and hear that their family had gotten to the other side, Kahului side. But some were just very unsure. And then in the days to come, we were a central hub. And one of the things we did was we created a list. So if you checked in at the church, and like we're not like a disaster response church, we just like, oh, we should probably keep track of who's coming here. So we didn't do it the first night or the second. We started doing it maybe by the morning of the 3rd day. So like night 1, night 2. And then I think the 3rd day we were like, anyone that's showing up here, write your name on this list. And people were coming day after day. If they lived or found a place to stay with friends, they would come to eat. And so we were keeping a list so they could check the list for their loved ones. And
wow. So
that was kind of our function. We were feeding, praying. We had supplies that people were bringing here. We have merchandise for our church. And I was just like, there should be not one drop of any merch left in this house. Like, get it all like out,
Yeah.
socks, hats, shirts, sweatshirts, whatever we have. I mean, it's not like we had a ton. Like, we had just gotten a new supply, which was also crazy. And
Yeah.
so I was just like, put it all out, just give it to people, like just give them clothes and towels and whatever they need. So yeah, it was like that. We were a
Wow.
central, unintended central service point for people.
And that whole buzz around your chapel there, how long did that occur for? Was that
A
several
while.
days or a week or what?
Oh yeah, a month. 2 weeks high intensity, where we partnered with that same nonprofit Mercy Chefs that I worked with on the mainland, and they brought their people here, and we found a commercial kitchen at one of the restaurants that was shut down, and they prepared food there, and then we plated it and boxed it, to go at our church, made a makeshift in our garage area into a whole food distribution site and
Wow.
tents and everything. And so we fed people in our multi-purpose room. We had dining tables, and then we brought in prayer people and counselors, and so people could just sit and have a hot meal and receive prayer or conversation, just share their trauma. And then we would drive food to different pockets that had no power where people were still at home. And then most of the area north or on this area, not like Lahaina, was got power back at like day 7,
Wow.
10. We still didn't have good service. I didn't have internet until someone brought us a Starlink and hooked it up on our roof. And so then we were at internet cafe. So we had people. We didn't have people sleeping over longer than 3 or 4 days because we were like, we're not going to be the sleepover place. We really
Yeah.
wanted people to find places because we needed to just be like, we're caring for you, we're feeding you, we're giving you internet, we're helping you solve, heal trauma, pray. So we kind of had to focus our efforts to know we are the person that's really focusing on food. And we did 30,000 hot meals in 2 weeks.
Wow.
And that was with partners and a commercial kitchen, but some of it we did in our own building for 4 days in those early first days till everything could get set up. And
Wow.
so,
I
yeah, it
mean,
was
that's,
nuts.
yeah. I mean, I'm hearing you say this and I'm thinking to myself, the, the, the wear and tear on the support system that you guys were,
Yes.
that gets hard too. I mean, a
Yes.
week to a month eventually. Wow.
And most all that served were people that had lost 50% or more.
Right.
So there
Right.
was 3 staff members at the time, paid staff, and 2 of them lost their dwellings where they lived, where they rented. I did not, and they did. And they were here every
Wow.
single solitary day for all in. Just I'm going to serve my
That's,
community, and
yeah.
and we aren't unique. West Maui was phenomenal. They showed up for each other. Ohana is real. Family is real. That is the word, and that is what we did. We were getting people donating food. Oh, the coffee shop, I'll bring it to Citizen. Oh, this person's going to clean out the freezer at their restaurant. I'll bring it to Citizen. They can cook that. It was just like, and we're kind of one of the only buildings off the highway that was open and that was doing anything. So it was just like we were being bombarded. It was very much of a grind
Sure.
because everyone wanted to help. And then they were just showing up saying, like, I'm here to talk to Pastor Sarah. I'm like, I've never met you a day in my life. Like, I don't have margin right now to chat about what you want to do to help us because we're just barely.
Yeah.
So that was good and hard. We had things we really needed, but our island was so beautiful and supporting it. All my church pastor friends on the other side of the island were like, "What do you need? We'll get it your way." What we even had to bring it by boat at one point. They brought a boat around the island to deliver, and then we did like a
Wow.
man train. I think that might have ended up in the Wall Street Journal picture of that.
Wow. Yeah. That's definitely a picture moment for sure.
Whatever we could do to
Wow.
get the stuff we needed, we did. Helicopter, boats, no lie, just crazy.
Well, it's funny because one of the questions I had here is, were there any strangers or unexpected sources of help that stood out during all of this? And
Mm,
it's you and your and all the people you worked with. So
yeah.
you were them. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like people always rise up, and
Right.
we have a good support network. And I really did. I think just the pastors that I attend a meeting with once a month, and I drive an hour to go meet with them once a month. And they're like, we're there for each other. And those pastors immediately like found a way to get to me. They couldn't call me. And so then they found a way through the barrier because they know people, and they just showed
Yeah.
up. And I was like, oh, yes, you're here. Okay. And then they were like, we're going to hold people back so that you don't get an overflow, and you tell us what you need and we'll get you what you need, not all the things you don't need. Because that was one of the hardest things, was to tell someone that we don't need what you have. And they wanted to help with great heart, but also weren't able to receive the no, and weren't like, they were people that make it about themselves in these kind of situations. I think that's my number one message. And I literally wrote a whole book. It's called Alongside: How to Love Your Neighbor in Their Time of Trial. And it came out in 2017, but there's a chapter in it, and it's chapter 2, and it's called It's Not About You. And so my family has a little code. We just say chapter 2. Like, it's just how we can like cope when people are trying to make something about themselves. And so like our church kind of had that language gently, like, I know you want to give me all your cat food that your car is filled with, but I don't have any cats on the property, and no one is coming here to get those kind of supplies. That's not what we're doing. But what do you mean? You don't want the cat food. I'm not lying. Car was full to the rim. Such a great heart. But I couldn't help you be needed in that way. And then I was like, people were mad, but I had to just be okay with it because chapter 2.
I love that saying. I'm going to try to start using it. Chapter
it's not about
2.
you.
It is so true, though. It's very true in a lot of areas where that people just aren't there for the right reason.
Yeah. And they are with the right, but they need to hear, like, if we don't need it, we just don't need it. And you're making my life harder because you're wanting me to need what you want to offer. And I can't. I'm already in crisis. I am in crisis. I am barely coping. So you're not adding value. You are subtracting energy.
Yeah.
And that's people really need that awareness.
True. I agree. I mean, it's amazing. This is a major project thrown on with no notice to organize and to figure all this out. That's just, that alone is crazy amazing, and probably, you know, God's hand helping that get set up, because who could do that, right? But you had to do it.
Yeah. I think that's one of the most beautiful things about the church, is that in general, the church is designed to uplift people to use their gifts, to know what you're good at and to do it. And because we had almost been semi-prepared during COVID, we did grocery box distributions at our church for 14 months during COVID. And so we had kind of like, people knew what lane to run in, even though it looked a little different. They just knew, I got to do my thing. I got to just use my gift. And they had all been doing that, been trained, been readied. And so I just feel like, what a privilege to be uniquely positioned to, in one of the greatest hours of need, to let the church be the church, which is what we hope it will be, that it will have open doors and open hearts and love their neighbor and serve their community, no strings attached. And so for me, it's like the greatest privilege. It was the highest honor that I could have had in my life, to serve in this way, because we were ready. And even though we weren't, we were ready. And when God does that, when he aligns all those things, there's just nothing more beautiful than it's the expression people use that sounds a little Christian cliche, being the hands and feet of Jesus. It seems like a Christian cliche, but it was the actuality. It was lived out, and it's not always possible. And it's just it really was an honor to serve our community this way.
It's a testimony builder, really is, of the hand of the divine.
Yes.
In this process.
Yes. For
sure.
And the reality of what was happening, and God's sovereignty over it all, that even if there's a natural disaster, God is still totally at work in the middle of it.
Wow. All the way up to a month. My gosh.
Yeah. And it even goes beyond that. But that was the intensity. And then a lot of people were using our building. We had school meetings. And then we ended up becoming a remote learning site. So the
Oh,
Hawaii
wow.
Department of Education visited on day 3, and they just said, we're looking for spaces because the parents are, we lost a full grade school on Front Street, Cam Third,
Wow.
King Kamehameha the Third School, elementary. I mean, most people on Lahaina went to school there, and it was gone. And so I think it was 500 to 600 kids. I won't get the exact number, but it's between 500 and 600 kids were displaced. And then the other schools, Princess Nahianaena Elementary, is very close to that high school, and then the middle school is right between them. So they're off Lahaina Luna
Mm.
Road. They were above the fire where it burned, but they were smoke damage and very close to some of them were burned properties. So like we said, fire's indiscriminate. So it's like it was not usable. So they were like, where are we going to put our kids to school? And
Right.
so they said, do you have space? And I said, our church's core value, we give our very best for the next generation. We courageously fight for the future. Those are 2 of our 10 core values. So we will find a way to give our best to this next
Wow.
generation of kids that need a place. So we were in 2 rooms of our entire church. We officed in 2 offices, and we gave them every other space in the church to use for the kids. And we helped with traffic and welcoming and all the things. So that the remote school was, I think, 4 to 6 weeks. They met here, and then they found other options. So that we did that. So we were doing a lot of things. We were doing Friday night community dinners. We were hosting trauma workshops. We were so once the intensity, then we just phased into like, what's our long-term recovery? And
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and then just like being wise about what we said yes to, that it was stayed in our lane and stayed with the highest purpose we could use our building for was our goal. What's the highest purpose that will serve the most amount of people that can't find something else? Or, that was kind of how we made our decisions on the million requests that we were getting to use our building and use the yard and use
Amazing.
the property. We did skate night events to just kind of like have it fun for the kids and just like give them
Yeah.
normalcy. Yeah, concerts. Like it was just, we did a lot of fun things and, really enduring. I mean, it's after like 6 months, we kind of got into some normalcy, maybe in the new year from August until
Yeah.
like January. And then it's just was like our long term. So then we had like ongoing different people that use our building that don't have options. We were open for funerals, anyone that needed to have a memorial.
Hmm.
We had done several of those, just like no expense, just use our building. We'll help you. We'll care for you. We did a Christmas event for that we partnered with other churches and organizations where we had all the parents come for a fun festival and every child went home with a gift and just to give normalcy. So we were doing like a lot of things to just serve our community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like the thing I'm thinking of as you're describing this is the the service building, church, chapel, whatever
Yeah.
your
Yep.
it was used as intended to its fullest,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, we're like a
That
community
building got a
center,
chance
which
to
is kind of what
do
you hope.
everything.
Yeah.
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 The
Dance
building got a
classes
chance
and
to serve.
recitals and I mean, you name it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So, and
Wow.
trying to build a church at the same time.
Yeah.
But it's been steady and growing, and we feel like West Maui is recovering. And I think my biggest heart and prayer has been, how do we find affordable ways for people to continue to live here so they can be part of the rebuilding? And that is
Yes.
the biggest stress point I feel as a pastor as I look out at the flock, so to speak, and just say, oh, if we can't keep them here, we can't rebuild together if they can't afford
Yeah.
it. So we've had people move to the mainland, we've had people move to the other side, and then they get a job, and then they're putting their kids in school, and they're like, well, I don't want to move again.
Right.
It's too traumatic for some to drive through at the beginning. We lost a lot of people that just couldn't even handle the drive to our church from the other side.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we've weathered all of the things.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, I mean, it's a story of good things out of a very terrible thing, right? I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah, I believe that.
Let me ask you this. And you have, as a pastor and as a person of faith, your view on this might be different than some people, but I think what you think and feel may be helpful for people to hear. I was going to ask, how has your perspective about life safety and nature been impacted by this experience?
Yeah.
You have perspective of, God and before and after, that kind of thing, which is good, because people that don't have that, it could be a very lonely place.
Yeah,
to
that's
go
such a
through
good
some of this.
question.
Yeah.
After 9/11, my husband was on a trip in Las Vegas at the time. He was traveled our whole marriage, and I was home with babies, and I had 3 kids under four and under. And when the world blew up with that, it's a bad expression, I suppose, but when that crisis erupted and happened, and he was at it's not the Javits is in New York City, but whatever the big convention center is in Las Vegas, he was there for a conference, and he ended up driving home with someone because he needed to get to us, and there was no
Yeah.
flights and all that. And then the next time he was ready to go get on a plane, I was like, you can't go. Like, you can't get on a plane after 9/11. And he was like, and he, like, if you asked him, he would say, oh, Sarah has bigger faith than me. But it's not true. He was like, he literally said, you put me into God's hands every day when I leave this house. And God has me, no matter if I'm on a plane or if I'm in a car or if I'm walking. God, I'm in God's hands. And that's not left me, because there just comes a point when, for me personally, I have to just believe that God has us either way. And if something tragic were happened to my husband, or what tragically happened in Lahaina, I just still believe God is still good. And it's a matter for me of living with faith and not fear. Doesn't mean I don't fear things, but I just feel my job is to trust that God has a bigger plan that I cannot always see. And that's not to just simplify it or put a silver lining on something. I believe it to the core of my being.
Right.
Because after the fire, we left 4 weeks after the fire because our twin grandsons were born 6 weeks early. One of them had restrictive growth syndrome is what it's called. And he was born at 3 pounds, 12 ounces. And on day 5, he almost died. And then we lived through that, and they were healthy and came home. And after 40 days in the intensive care, and then I was traveling to our central campus for a conference, and I went to my regular doctor, and I found out I had breast cancer. And I was like, okay, wildfire, twins in the NICU, breast cancer. And 4 days after that, we ended up putting my father-in-law in hospice. And 2 months after that, my brother passed. And I can't fear the future. I can only just abide in my faith. And I didn't lose my faith in any of that, as hard as it was.
Right.
I don't have to love my circumstance. It was not easy. But I was like, I have a specific verse that I claim. It's like, God is within her. She will not fall. He will help her at the break of day. We just have faith. And my job as the pastor of this house is to maintain my faith. So when I'm standing in front of my church saying I have cancer, I'm saying, no matter what happens, I trust and love the Lord. No matter what happens after the fire, we trust and love the Lord. And that's what it means to walk out faith in trial, I believe.
Yeah. No, that's powerful. And what a good message too, because what it says in addition to this is that when you put it in God's hand, right, you're not a victim.
Right.
Victims struggle to get past something. When you recognize that this is a challenge, a
Mm-hmm.
trial of the moment,
Yep.
now get back to work.
Yep.
It allows you to do what you need to do.
Yeah.
Powerful.
Thank you.
Powerful.
My friend always says,
Yeah.
God has his job, I have my job. So my job was to go to treatment and get surgery and go to radiation. God's job
Right.
is the whole rest, you know? And
Yeah. Yeah.
my job was to pray for those grandbabies and watch over the 4-year-old and just
Yeah.
be a Gigi that was standing firm no matter what comes. Accept the tears,
I love it.
receive the crying. I have my job, God has his job. And so it
Yes.
just kind of like almost gives you back all the power, all the controls back, because you just say, like, I know that I'm limited in what I can accomplish or do, and God is unlimited, and he may not do what I hoped, but it doesn't change. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. It's his
he
plan
wants his
for
best
sure.
for his children, and the world is broken and hard, and yeah, it's kind of why I just really am happy that there's an eternity that I get to. It all goes away.
Right?
No more tears.
Yeah.
No more crying in heaven.
Well, Sarah, this has been great. I've eaten up over an hour of your time. I want to ask a question or two quickly as we wrap up.
Sure.
This will be just what lessons should a wildfire-prone region learn from what Hawaii's experience was?
Yeah.
Any suggestions there?
Yeah, I think, and you asked that question a little bit. I might not have answered it fully. But I think for me, it's given me a new element of preparedness. Do I have my documents? Do I have, and then this year at the California wildfires in January, I actually left Lahaina and went to LA and served with Mercy Chefs because I just felt like I know what they're going through. And
Yeah.
and they were much more prepared. A lot of them were like, "Oh, I left my house with my papers," and So I think it's a kind of a big thing that we don't take the proactive time to get ready, to get that bag, the go bag, and we see it in like hurricane awareness time frame in Maui. They send it out like in June, July. We get that, and I just think like being prepared is important for your personal
Yeah.
self. Like, do you have your vital important things in a place you could grab them if you had to go? Because you never think you're going to need it, but you could. And it's
Yeah.
an instant and your brain is not working. So you have to think it through. So that's like the first thing, I think. And then I think that the thing I learned is that you use what you have. If you use what you have and you're willing to give it, then everyone collectively can help solve the problem, regardless of how prepared you are. If you're willing to use what you have and you don't like put your head down and think self-preservation, if you start to kind of think like, oh, I have something I can offer, and then it's like if more people do that, then you're helping your neighbor. And
Yeah.
that's what a lot of people did. They were putting fires out as cars went by, not running for themselves, or collectively walking together with belongings in a wagon 6 miles because they had to leave their cars behind, or climbing a hill together and making a human chain because the wind was so like you have something that you can use in a trial. It's just like getting your mind out of crisis to just kind of think like, I have something to offer, I don't know. I mean, other than that, there's a lot of things that we're doing. Our warning systems are all upgraded, and I actually put myself on a new app. It's called Protect, I want to say, and it checks my location like several times a day, and it will send me an alert if there's something nearby that I need to be aware of. So I gave it access. I will see if I can find the app so I can say it properly.
Is it an app for the islands, or is it?
I think it's a general app. I think it's.
Okay.
I truly think it's called Protect, and it's called Protect. And you put in your location, and my zone is Maui, Hawaii, and it says my zone status is normal. I have my address in there. The company that the app is through is called Genesis, Genassys is what it says on here.
Okay.
And it's called Protect. And I have it so that
There you
I'm
go.
protected because, like I have a place in Minnesota and we were 4 miles from a tornado one year.
Right.
So, I mean, it can happen
Why not
anywhere.
have that? We got the technology in our pocket if you can use it the way that's helpful,
Yeah.
right? A helpful tool, not just
Yeah.
something else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that,
That makes
and, um, I think what people forget about is an easy thing that is a great way, an easy way to protect yourself in insurance situations that I've learned through a lot of deployments is just taking phones and taking pictures of all your belongings. And we had a garage fire, and thank God it just stayed to the spot that it was. But, in the end, we didn't have an idea of what was in that garage that they had to take, and they took every belonging out of that garage and
yeah.
de-smokified it and threw, and I was like, I don't know what was in there.
Yeah.
So I think just like even general pictures to help you recall areas, even if it's not every item because you forget. I think that's another way to prepare, honestly, is just like, what do you have? What's in your, because people don't think about it. And fires in homes can
So true.
happen and floods can happen. And we're kind of like either you're hyper prepared or you're like, it's never going to happen to me. There's not a healthy
Right.
sense of preparation, I feel, as the median of our
Yeah.
country.
That's so true. Yeah. Well, that's great advice and great suggestions. As we wrap up here, I want to ask you something kind of close to that, but it'll probably be the last question, which is if you could leave the listeners with one takeaway from this situation, what would it be?
My perspective often comes from how to love other people well in the situation. And that was the advice that I gave when I went to California after the recent wildfires in January. When I would meet with people, one of the things I believe that my role is to educate people on is the number one thing people want is they want space to like lay their burden down. They want to
Hmm.
have room for you to receive that burden. I think that's the greatest gift you can give someone that is going through a hardship or a trauma or a disaster is to create space for them to lay it down, to talk it out, to say what actually happened. We interviewed every single person in our church about their story of what happened. And I just feel like that's part of the process. It wasn't like we published it, we didn't like
Yeah.
broadcast it. We just let them sit and share their what happened to you on the day of the fire. And so when you can sit and listen and truly be present with someone, it's the biblical words that I would use is Galatians says, carry one another's burdens, and in doing so, you will fulfill the law of Christ. I think it's Galatians 6:9, I believe. And so, like, that's just something that I've learned is like, wow, so many people are busy, they're rushing, they aren't creating space for people to like just give away the pain and put it on someone. And I couldn't take anymore at one point. I couldn't receive any more stories because they're all my people. They were all my
Yeah.
people. And so we had our teams from Albuquerque, our central campus, coming in to rotating every week. And I would just look at them and say, like, your job is to pastor people. Your job is to listen. Your job is to sit next to them at a meal and just let them tell their story. Let them cry, receive it. Don't try to fix it. Don't try to silver lining it. These are all tips from my book. So I'm sorry, I get a little preachy
Yeah.
because I
No, it's great.
just believe in this so much. So I think that that's the greatest gift is just come alongside and be present and receive their burden and let them share it with you. And if you're the person in the crisis, I would say find a safe place and don't think you can just do it on your own, because we had a lot of people that said they didn't need counseling right away, but we were like, nope, you're going.
Right.
Like we had
Right.
counselors that we provided space our building to use, Christian counselors, and we just had people, and we used our part of our relief fund to support that ministry of people working so the counselor could get paid.
Mm.
And we try to use local counselors because they know Maui and they know the people. We certainly welcomed outside people as well, but we tried really hard to keep it Maui. But they lived on the other side of the island. So they knew Maui, they knew the culture, they could experience, but they weren't like directly affected. And I think
Right.
that's just, if you're the person that's still struggling with something, it's not going to get better. It's just going to like erupt at some time in some way. And if you're not caring for
Yeah.
yourself, even if you feel like you don't need it, you will. So just be proactive in it.
Great advice. My gosh, really. And something that I think many people will push down or not think about.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that bursting of the seams somewhere else because it comes out somewhere,
The thing
right?
is not the thing, right? It's this that happened and
Yeah.
you've left it. And now it's like affecting everyone in your life.
Yeah. Crazy. Well, thank you for that. You know, before we wrap up, what's the name of your book? People
Oh,
might be interested
yeah.
in reading that.
It's called Alongside, one word. And it's
Alongside.
on Amazon and the places, all the places. And the second book is called Hope in the Hard Places. So that was like the follow on. So the alongside is, how do I come along my friend who's struggling, divorce or cancer, or illness or loss of a loved one or disaster. And then the
Yeah.
second book is like written from the context of, what if it's me that's in the struggle? And how do I find hope in the hard places?
Wow.
So, and they were before I
Inward and
pastored.
outward.
Yeah,
I love it.
2017 and 2019. And then I became a pastor in 2020. And then I had to live those books out, I guess.
Yeah, it's a good thing you wrote those
I
because you got a
suppose.
chance to.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
God knows what he's
Sarah, this
doing.
has been great. Thank you so much for
Yeah,
this
thank you
and
for your
carving out time
concern
here.
for our community and for wanting to tell that story. I'm very grateful, very, very much.
Yes, and you know, prayers to all of you out there.
Thank you.
Ongoing prayers, you know, blessings and all those things to try to, you know, get things back to where they can be in a good place.
Yes.
But you know, in a lot of ways, they are in a good place because inside people exercise that part of
Yes.
things, right?
Yes.
So now it's the
Yeah.
material stuff that needs to
Yeah.
be where it needs to be.
Yeah. At least from my perspective.
Okay.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Thank you. And let me just say to everybody out there, these things are tough. These are the types of things that we can't always foresee and predict. But are there things we can do to prepare? Yeah, hard to say, but we've talked about some of those things. There's physical preparedness, mental, spiritual, all these other ways to prepare for the things that we don't know. The Lahaina Wildfire 2023. Thank you once again, Sarah. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And as we close down, just remember, there's a lot of strange and unexpected in our reality. So always keep your eyes, ears, and minds open. And until next time, stay safe.
Thank you for listening to High Strangeness. This was a glance at some of the strange that exists in our reality.